Arsenal 2, Aston Villa 2, another disappointing game at the Emirates Stadium at home in the Premier League. And it's quite sad, to be honest, because I really thought that Arsenal did well in periods in the game where we dominated them, we had more possession, we had more chances, especially in the first half. But at the end of the day, whatever you want to talk about in terms of statistics, whether you want to talk about expected goals and all these sorts of stuff, the only statistic that matters is what is on the final scoreline, and that is 2-2. And it's quite sad and it's quite unfortunate to see Arsenal be 2 goals up and then concede 2 goals. That is a sign of pressure, that's a sign of things getting to them, and all the hard work in terms of the mentality that the club have been trying to build over the 5 years, it's crumbling down. And I could see with Arteta, he was very upset after the game, and I don't blame him. During the other games, he looked more unsure about ideas and how to beat teams, but to see Arsenal be 2 goals up and then concede 2 goals, anyone would be upset. And it's something that I've been used to seeing from Arsenal in the past, and it's been quite a while since I've seen Arsenal concede goals like that under pressure. And you know what? It's just not been good enough this entire season, let's just be honest. And it's weird because as soon as Arsenal drop a player from their first 11, it's like everyone loses their heads. It's like everyone just sort of forgets their role and forget what they need to do. But there's been so many underlying issues with this squad and underlying issues with the tactics and the personnel and the talent ID that have led to this scenario. But a lot of this comes down to the players, comes down to the manager, because at the end of the day, they just weren't able to handle the pressure. And it's very unfortunate I have to say this, because I thought Arsenal were able to solve this issue, but unfortunately it's come back. And if you were to ask yourself whether or not Arsenal will be able to compete well in the Premier League and fight against Liverpool, then like I said before, I just don't think Arsenal have it in them. Now, in terms of the game as a whole, Havertz managed to get at the end of the goal, which is a good thing. Martinelli got a goal as well. Trossard got the assists, and you can make the argument the attack did their job, but the defense didn't. And to some extent, you are right. But at the end of the day, with the amount of possession that Arsenal had in periods of the game where Arsenal had dominated Aston Villa in terms of creating more chances in those areas, I just think that Arsenal didn't do enough and we didn't kill the game when we needed to. And this is why Arsenal have been lacking a striker for a long time. And the thing is, I've been thinking about the way Arsenal play and Arteta's thinking, and there's a reason why this way hasn't worked and won a league title before. And the thing is that even Guardiola understood this years ago, especially when he was at Barcelona and he came out with that team of having 11 midfielders. I still remember when he put Fabregas in centre forward, and even then they weren't able to do well with it, because you need to have that diamond cutting edge. You can have players that play in multiple positions and be extremely versatile, and you can change them as much as you want on the pitch, but at the end of the day, you need players that are specialized in certain positions to get you over the line. You need players that have certain characteristics and ego to get you over that edge in order to win trophies. All the big teams have those players, and if you're unable to have those players and handle them and manage them, and no matter how good you think your tactics may be, then you will never ever get over the line. And the same can be said with Mikel Arteta and any other manager. And like I said, it's been very unfortunate. Liverpool have won against Brentford, and that's been the thing with Liverpool. They've been very unlucky, in my opinion, over the last couple of seasons. I think that with Klopp, I think he was finished in terms of his time at Liverpool, and that they needed to move on to someone new. And now that they have, just because now they have new fresh ideas in the changing room and have a new person speaking, the players reinvigorate. And now with the special talent they have across the pitch, whether it's Trent, Van Dijk, Mohamed Salah, you have so many players out there that can literally make the difference. And what can be said in compared to Arsenal Football Club? Saliba's been dropped. Timber played centre back. I thought he looked okay, but the thing is that you can only take versatility so far, and this is why Arsenal have so many problems in terms of injuries, because they just haven't made a squad that's big enough to deal with all these competitions. And made it big enough to essentially do well in the Premier League and win the Premier League because of their poor planning and their naive thinking. Versatility can only take you so far, and this is why when Pep Guardiola has been winning the league and been trying to run his system and his tactics a certain way, he knew in order to win the Champions League he had to change something up, and which is why he got Erling Haaland. And the problem is Mikel Arteta, he's a young manager, but he's incredibly stubborn, something like Wenger, but he's not Arsene Wenger, and he hasn't even achieved a tenth of what Wenger was able to do or what Guardiola has been able to do. So in that sense, by the time he does learn about what he needs to do in terms of changing his tactics and sacrificing certain things, it will be too late, because a lot of the people are already fed up with what they've been seeing this season and what may come of next season. Yes, there may be things that happen in the summer transfer window, but I don't think anything will be enough in the transfer window to repair the damage by what's going to happen from now to the end of the season. Will Arsenal win games? Yes, but they won't be as competitive and they'll lose that drive, and that will cause a big effect on the rest of the players. And I don't think the board, the manager and the club are ready for what's about to happen soon. I've seen it happen multiple times with the Arsenal Football Club over the years where players have enough and they leave, and I think that's going to come down the line. And I think a lot of Arsenal fans need to really hope that William Saliba does re-sign his contract, because if he doesn't, then Arsenal are going to fall down to a top 4 team, and we've seen it today. Today was just a trailer essentially. If we were to look at some of the other players, I thought Declan Rice looked okay. I thought Gabriel was trying to do his thing. Miles Lewis-Skelly once again playing well, and it's just been really the same old names. And the thing is with Martin Odegaard, I thought today even he was missing again, and it's annoying that I have to keep saying this, and I have had the debate in my head about whether or not Odegaard is right as captain as Arsenal Football Club. Yes, against Tottenham, these players did play well. They did play great against Tottenham and made a lot of chances and this and that, but they didn't have that clinical ability. But the thing is, as a captain, I need you to step up when things go bad. I need you to step up when the team is under pressure and take the game to yourself. And I've seen Bukayo Saka do it. I've seen Gabriel Magalhaes step up and get a goal at crucial moments. Declan Rice, we've seen what he done as a captain for West Ham Football Club, but we don't know whether that will be translated into being a captain for Arsenal Football Club and taking Arsenal to that next level, because captains like Roy Keane, Vieira, Steven Gerrard, they're all captains that have won the biggest of trophies and got them over the line. Why? Because they took things into their own hands. And I look at Martin Odegaard, and this is another game I'm looking at and I'm saying, why aren't you able to do that for us? Because yes, you're a good footballer, but I'm looking at you mentally. Yes, you can be on the front line and encourage the team to press, but when it comes to games being 2-2, you need to be the guy to get the winner. When this team is under pressure, you need to tell everyone to calm the hell down and take the ball and control it and dictate the play. And I just don't think he's been doing that enough. You can blame it on injuries, you can blame it on how the team is doing as a whole, but I don't want to look at the entire team. I need to just look at you, because you are the main guy. When I looked at Saka and Odegaard wasn't there, Saka stood up, and that's the main difference. Now, it doesn't mean that every team needs to pick their best player as their captain, but you expect at the very least that your captain steps up. And I'm sorry to say this, but I just don't think Martin Odegaard's been stepping up very well this season. You can blame it on whatever, injuries, the manager's tactics, this and that, but there were times when Patrick Vieira and Thierry Henry were on the pitch and they just said, you know what, screw it, this isn't working, we need to take matters into our own hands. And that's what Odegaard needs to do. I mean, for God's sake, when he got dropped against Brighton, there were alarm bells from then, and I'm not looking for any more excuses, to be honest with you. Like I said, I don't think Arsenal will win the league, but there needs to be certain things in performances where you can't drop off from. And the fans of this club really annoy me, because I've heard things like, oh, we're not Real Madrid, or we have to accept things what they are. And as an Arsenal fan, that's the most stupidest thing you could say. If you're a match-going fan and you're paying a ticket, you have a right to demand more, especially if it's the highest ticket prices in Europe, and this team hasn't won a damn trophy in 5 years. And I know I'm not including the Community Shield, okay? Enough of that crap. But back to the game. One other player that I didn't talk about was Mikel Moreno, and I have to be honest, I am fed up with this brother. I mean, yeah, you can break up play, yeah, you're getting the ball, but whenever I see him get the ball, he always falls on the floor whenever he gets tackled. Like, I don't see that sort of strength, that sort of toughness that you need in the Premier League. And I don't see him doing anything else. Okay, cool, you shot the ball, it hit Havertz's hand, but I need to see more from him, especially if you're in the 8, you know, do that box crasher role that Steven Gerrard or Jude Bellingham does for Real Madrid. And for a player that's 28 years old, on the money that he's on, someone that was expected to be the new number 8 or whatever, he just hasn't not been good enough. And even today, the first goal that Aston Villa scored, I thought that was an own goal from Mikel Arteta, and I'm just really incredibly disappointed with him throughout this entire season. And he needs to step up. And with Kai Havertz and that handball, I know that there'll be more pressure on him. Yes, he scored the goal, but when you're getting a handball in that sort of scenario, in that sort of area, it just causes so much more criticism and annoyance, and as a player, especially on the highest wages. And this is a fact that will be continuously repeated for the rest of his time at Arsenal. He needs to be the guy that gets us the winners, as well as Martin Odegaard, just purely based on the fact that he's the number 9 and the fact that he's on the highest wages in the club. And the thing is, even when Raheem Sterling came on, it's another game where he did nothing. And this comes on to my other point in terms of the transfer window. It's been 18 days, 19 days that we're going into this transfer window in January, and still Arsenal haven't done anything. And the way that people have looked at the Zubimendi signing in the summer, or the talks essentially, he hasn't even signed anything on a contract from what I've seen. It's ridiculous how Arsenal fans take this news and just eat it up. It's ridiculous. I mean, why do you care about what's happening in the summer? Focus on what's happening now. And this is why Patrice Evra was right about Arsenal, and especially the fans always looking into next season. Why do you constantly look into the future? Look at what's happening presently at your time. And at this time, Arsenal are a mess, both offensively in the midfield and now even defensively, with Saliba being out of the team. And a lot of people are supposed to be happy about this and just accept this. I don't understand what's going on. Yeah, but even now, with the transfer window, there's been so many opportunities been available. Omar Mamouche went to Manchester City. The best left winger in the world that was available in Kvara has went to PSG. You mean to tell me that you couldn't have gone for any of these signings? Even Daniel Malen went to Aston Villa today, and he was on the bench. You mean to tell me that he couldn't get a look in? Now, maybe about Malen you might have criticisms of, but at the end of the day, you couldn't even look for any players. There was no players available in this entire world that you couldn't get and that could help this team. This is why I don't believe this crap in the transfer window that these guys always say they have to look for the right player to join, because this is a lot of the thing that Arsene Wenger used to said, and these guys are just trying to repeat it, and it's all BS. And the thing is, if you're my age and if you've seen all of this, a lot of people should know by now what's been going on, because it's the same old talking points, it's the same old words coming out from the PR of the club and the manager now, and this entire board or whatever the hell it is. And it's annoying. I'm seeing this all for what it is, and that's why I'm not really that upset or annoyed as much as I should be, because I've seen this all before. And with the strikers that are available, okay, cool, you don't want to get Isak, but Gyökeres is there, and you mean to tell me that this manager can't get a tune out of Gyökeres? I mean, I'm sure he could press and do what Havertz is doing in that regard, but if you don't have a proper strike in your team, you won't be able to do anything. And this is another thing about Arsenal, in terms of, there's one thing in the transfer window, there's one thing to buy players, but there's also a thing to sell players. And I don't know why Arsenal just haven't been able to sell players efficiently. Okay, if you want to put it down to Edu, that's fine, but why do you bring in a director of football that can sell players if you're having this much trouble doing well financially? And it doesn't look like Arsenal are hurting financially. They seem to be doing fine, and they're following PSR and whatever it is. And this is why I bring this up, is because even as a business, Arsenal aren't performing as well as they should be doing. I mean, if you have players that you're clearly not using, then try and do your best to sell the players. Don't be waiting for a director of football that's going to come next year, because here's the thing, right? If we just keep talking about next year, then as a fan base, just don't bother watching Arsenal until these guys decide to be ready to actually compete and to say, you know what, we're actually going to do some business, because it's just wasting everyone's time. I mean, what is this nonsense? I mean, we're here now, we're trying to, like, a lot of people are trying to support the team, and you're just coming up with this bull crap of saying, oh yeah, next year we're going to do this. What do you mean? What? When you buy a product, when you go to a restaurant or you buy off something off the internet, you say, oh yeah, you know, it'll be ready till next year, or you buy a house or something like that. You say, no, you want to buy something for the here and now. And that's why a lot of people get sucked into this rubbish and just wait for the future and just hope for things to magically happen, and they end up not happening. Instead, you just cause more problems to go down the line, because even players at the club, they'll be like, come on, what are you doing? Like, we're here, we want to win now. Like, why are you just constantly just taking us for a ride? And that's essentially what's going on at Arsenal right now with everything that's been going on, both internally and externally. Like I said, there's still 10 or so days left, but I don't think Arsenal are going to do much in this transfer window. And for Arsenal to leave it this late, I mean, it just shows how poorly planned they really did everything. Now, I know I have deviated from the game, but it's important to look at things in the grand scheme of, in the grand picture, that from a managerial point of view, the tactics that he's doing is extremely naive. The talent ID and the management of the players, I get you want to be versatile, but you need to understand that there's certain things you can't compromise when it comes to winning a league or Champions League, whatever. The reason why the 11 versatile experiment has never worked, or no one does it essentially, is because it hasn't worked in the past. You need to have that striker to get over the line, and if you're not going to get that striker, then forget about it. And with Mikel Arteta, I've already said my thoughts about him. I don't think he's the guy to take us forward. I don't think with the current squad that we have right now, we've added more dead weight to it. And it's funny because I see other teams where, I think before with Manchester United, every player had about a season or two to prove themselves, and then if they didn't prove themselves within that season or two, then they were out the door. And that's the thing that annoys me about Arsenal, about why Arsenal aren't quick enough to sell players if they're not performing on the pitch. It could be due to injuries, it could be due to poor form, it could be due to whatever, but at the end of the day, football doesn't wait for anyone, and if they're not performing within that 1 to 2 year window, then they need to leave. And that goes for everyone. It could go for Gabriel Jesus, it could go for Kai Havertz, it could go for Gabriel Martinelli, Trossard, anyone at all. And that's what really annoys me most out of anything. Buying players is one thing, but not being able to sell players and use that money to reinvest, just poor business and just poor planning, in my opinion. But yeah, let's just see what happens as the game goes on. I didn't talk about the Tottenham game because in that game there were things that made me happy, because obviously Arsenal beat Tottenham, but it was very disappointing as well, because we can clearly see there's a few things that Arsenal need to do, but whether or not they'll go over the line and do it is another issue altogether. And based on everything we've seen, if they don't look like they're going to do it, and if they're not going to do it, then as a fan, I'm very hesitant to continue putting my faith in this team to actually do something this season. Right now, it's Liverpool's to lose. Liverpool look like they're going to run away with it, and credit to them, because the one thing that I do admire about Liverpool, they find a way. And that's something that Real Madrid has. Whenever the going gets tough, they can be playing bad for a good 89 minutes of the game, but they only need that 1 minute in order to change it. And in Arsenal, I look in this entire team and I think to myself, okay, who's the player that's going to change the game? Who's the guy that's going to win me the game? And the only player is Bukayo Saka and possibly William Saliba. I'm not putting Martin Odegaard in that camp anymore. You can maybe put Gabriel Magalhaes, but everyone else, nah. And Declan Rice, what I can say is that even with him in the number 8 role, I've already said it's not going to work. But yeah, that's the end of my thoughts on this game and on Arsenal as a whole. It's really a bleak time to be an Arsenal fan, especially when there was so much hope and optimism and there were things to be really positive about from the team. But 5 years down the line, this isn't the youngest team in the league anymore, and we just have to accept that fact that it's either do or die. But yeah, let's see how things go in the coming games. Poor results, guys. Poor results. Anyway, I hope to see you soon in the next video. Bye bye.